Am I the a-hole for not sharing activities with my son's stepdad that include parental involvement? I, 31 male, have an 11-year-old son with my ex, Kate, 31 female. Kate and I were together for 3 years and then we broke up. A few months later, Kate asked if we could get back together, and still loving her at the time, I said yes. We were back together for 2 months when I found out she had started seeing another guy while we were broken up, and she was still with him while we were back together. I told Kate it was over and I wasn't going to play around with that kind of shit, and she knew I had watched my parents doing that crap. Kate's then boyfriend, now husband, is James. James had no idea we got back together until Kate's best friend told him. This was after I had broken things off with her again. Then Kate found out she was pregnant and had no idea which of us was the father. I told her we needed to do a DNA test. James said no, we don't, and he'd be the father regardless. He proposed while Kate was pregnant. She said yes, but they weren't married when my son was born. Kate asked me to be in the delivery room with her, and she told me she sort of knew I was the father. This pissed James off, who was not in the room with her, and she sent him to work. It was messy. I think she wanted us to get back together when our son was born, but I never entertained the idea. DNA proved I'm the dad, and Kate and I went to court to figure out custody. James hated it. He hated me instead of Kate for cheating. He hated me for choosing to stick around and parent. He called me selfish and said my son could have grown up in a simple 2-parent home instead of a broken home from the start. He engaged in a lot of alienation back then, and for about a year I was given custody of my son while Kate and James had to attend classes and therapy. James did calm down a little and 50-50 custody was reinstated. James still hates me though, and he can't be around me. Kate and I keep all contact via app. Kate and James struggled to have children together and lost 3. Their son was born 2 years ago with severe disabilities. During that time, my son started to explore different activities he wanted to do and joined a couple of clubs that offered a more relaxed experience to sports and allowed parents to be involved. I was the only parent involved in that. Kate didn't want a part. James was jealous again, and my son told me James wanted to go instead of me, but my son wanted me there instead. So I continued taking him. About 2 weeks ago, James approached me and wanted me to be less involved with these activities so he could be. He said we should share them and I should let him have one. I told him that was not going to happen. He started getting loud, so I moved away from him and carried on with what I was doing. James then sent a long email calling me selfish and saying I know his only bio kid will never get to do this stuff, so I should be sharing my son with him better, and how my son doesn't call him dad despite being around since before he was born, and blaming me for that. Am I the a-hole?
Not the a-hole. You need to figure out a better way to deal with James. Ideally, he calms down a bit more. But having a fight about the kid is absurd. If you all can be there, then that'd be cool. If he cannot handle that he needs to see you to be there, then that is his problem. The biological mother can sue to attempt to get a court to say that she gets, like, baseball. But a court isn't going to see stepdad's feelings as so important.
He cannot handle seeing me there or being near me, so he can't show up. I don't know how else I can deal with James though. He's too angry at me. His hatred runs down to his bones.
I'd probably work to modify the custody arrangement if James hates one of the parents so much that he can't be in a room with that person. He is unstable.
It's been 11 years. James is never going to change. If anything, he will get worse as the child hits his milestones. Graduation, wedding, kids, etc. James will complain OP's grandkids should call him grandpa too. It's exhausting just thinking about it. I would change the custody and have the kid see his mother on weekends, split holidays, and 2 full weeks over the summer. This sort of pressure must be weighing on the kid.
Not the a-hole. But James is out of line, and you need to tell your ex that if she can't get him to back off, you will take her to court to get full custody. It's unfair to your son to have this pressure put on him. You are his dad, and that has to be respected.
This is the only reply. Not the a-hole. James has 0 lines in this play. Kiddo wants dad involved in activities, that's the end of it. All parental communication should happen between mom and dad, especially as James has proven unstable and untrustworthy. Document everything because you'll likely need to present it to your lawyer before long.
This is the right way forward. Discuss and put it to Kate that she has to get her husband under control. James is obviously very jealous and wants to be controlling things, but this is between you and your ex.
Am I the a-hole for having my neighbor's cars towed from my garage? My house is being built in a neighborhood that's a few years old. My lot is one of the few remaining lots, and there are occupied houses surrounding mine. The exterior is basically complete and the contractors are in the process of putting up the drywall. After work the other night, I decided to drive out to inspect the work. Everything looked fine until I decided to check out my garage. When I opened the door, I saw 2 cars and a minivan parked inside my garage. I called the contractor to see if he knew anything about them, and he was as perplexed as I was. My guess is that one of the neighbors decided to park their cars inside my garage because there was a slight chance of hail that night. At first I was just going to leave it alone, but the more I thought about it, the angrier I got. By the time I got to my car, I was steaming mad. So much so that I called a tow company and had them tow all 3 vehicles away. The next morning my contractor called and told me the police was there to investigate the theft of the vehicles. I had them put the police on the phone and explained that I was the owner of the property, had the vehicles towed, and gave them the tow company information. My contractor told me later that the owners of those vehicles were shouting and cussing them out until the police made them leave. I went by after work and a guy confronted me about being his ass for having their vehicles towed. He was shouting about how I ruined their day because they missed work and their kids were late to school because. He also said it cost almost $1,000 to get all 3 vehicles back and that I'll be covering the cost. I told him good luck with that and that he's the ass for parking in my garage without my permission. We went back and forth until his wife came and pulled him home. Some of the other neighbors came out to watch our argument, and afterwards some of them told me I was starting off on the wrong foot and should apologize to that guy. They said that I should be more neighborly and understand that neighbors help each other out. One said that I should have left a note instead of having them towed. It seems all my neighbors are against me. I can see their point, so maybe I overreacted? I'm not sure.
Not the a-hole. Who the EFF feels so entitled as to park their vehicles in someone else's garage even if the house isn't yet occupied? Starting off on the wrong foot? That's what the neighbor did by putting his things where they didn't belong. What if your contractor came back in the morning and they were still inside, and that's where your contractor had to do work or stage materials? That's potentially money out of his pocket or yours. What if this neighbor damaged something pulling in or out and just left without telling you? I'm certain they wouldn't have let you know or offered to pay to fix it.
I'm certain they wouldn't have let you know. Exactly right. You know how you can be sure they wouldn't have let OP know? Because if they were the kind of people to communicate and take responsibility for their actions, they would have left a note on the cars identifying themselves, explaining why they were borrowing the garage, and their phone numbers so OP could easily contact them if it was a problem. OP, you are not the a-hole.
Borrowing the garage.
Not the a-hole. The audacity of your neighbor here is unconscionable. He trespassed on your property, then got mad when he had to pay the consequences? And the next time your other neighbors say to forgive him, ask them why they didn't offer their garage to those neighbors?
And why are the neighbors so quick to tell OP he needs to apologize? I'd guess that their experience with said neighbor isn't great. Neighbor likely is a huge red flag.
Or the other neighbors are like that, too. Might just have moved into the local a-hole assembly line.
I was starting off on the wrong foot and should apologize to that guy. Amazing. You were starting off on the wrong foot? No, you did right. Your neighbor FA and FO. He was the one who parked his cars where they shouldn't have. Tow the cars again if they park there. Some people need a lesson like this to fix their entitled overstepping ways. Not the a-hole.
OP didn't even have the opportunity to meet their neighbor.
Starting on the wrong foot would have been bending over and accepting this bullshit behavior. Giving them the impression they could keep doing this without consequence would indeed be on the wrong foot.
What do you think of these stories? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel to see more interesting videos.